Hello and welcome to another Stage to Sofa. Today I'm joined by an incredible international soprano with an unforgettable voice and remarkable stage presence. She's been heralded as a singer of enormous gift and promise by the New York Times and has sang all over the world in many different opera houses. It is, of course, the incredible Jennifer Rowley. Jen,
Oh,
how are you doing?
thank you, sweetheart. Good. How are you?
Not bad. How is Zurich? You've made it over to Zurich. How are you doing over there?
I'm freezing. I came from Florida where it's 85, 90 degrees, and now we're at 40 degrees and I'm freezing. Like I'm actually freezing. But no, everything's fine. I arrived safely and I'm in quarantine in my apartment. I have to quarantine for 10 days, and then on the 26th, I will leave quarantine and go straight to rehearsal. So everything is good.
So exciting. Oh my goodness. And how is it feeling having that small sense of normality back of going to start a show again? How are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? What is going through your mind?
I'm all those things. I'm excited because obviously it's a privilege to get to be one of the people that are getting to sing right now, because we know that everyone wants to be out working. We all want to be out working, and I'm feeling super humbled and super blessed to actually be able to be one of those people who is getting to go and do it. So I'm thrilled, and I am in love. The role is awesome. Amelia is just incredible. It's sitting wonderfully in my voice, and I'm excited to get with Maestro Luisi and just like work it and get it in my body and get his musical genius on it, and get with the orchestra, and just so I'm excited about that. But I am nervous, I have to say, because I have many colleagues, that are out and about in Europe and performing, and there's a lot of protocols everywhere. Everybody's got their mask mandates, and houses are taking temperatures when you come into the backstage area, and people are testing for COVID weekly and things like that. So there's a lot of protocols, in place. But I can't help being nervous. I can't. It's just like, it's a thing. It's just, I want the show to go on, and I want everybody to be safe, and I want us to be able to make music, and I want this to be over with. Um, so there's a lot of stuff going on in here, but I'm trying to, just stay as calm and be as positive as possible.
That's amazing. And I think that's the only thing you can be in these times, like all of us. It's such a exceptional time that we're living through at the moment. But I'm so excited that there is going to be a small, well, hopefully a little bit bigger than small amount of people that get to hear your glorious talent. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been very much missed. So I'm very excited for those people to hear it live. How exciting. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your career and how you've got to this point, Jen, because you've had
Sure.
such a fascinating time. And I would like, if I may, to take you back to your early years of music. And I'm wondering, what was your earliest memory of live music when you were a child?
Oh wow. Well, I was in ballet very, very young. My mom took me to ballet and to dance. And I remember being in a dance class in Cleveland. I danced with her name was Marguerite Duncan, and Miss Kitty. Gosh, I can't remember Kitty's last name. Anyway, Miss Kitty was my teacher, and when we would go downtown to the studio, there was always a live pianist and in the room for ballet class. And I remember just loving that sensation of that live pianist in the room, kind of living and breathing with you. And you could kind of feel as though you were, in partnership and moving together. And it was always, that was always my favorite thing when we had the live pianist. And I'll never forget this. Miss Kitty used to do, at the end of every class, she'd kind of do like a freestyle cool down type of thing. And she loved the Chopin nocturnes. Now, of course, at the time, I had no idea they were the Chopin nocturnes because I was like 10. But she would do the Chopin nocturnes, and they were always so beautiful. And I remember, you know, she would stand at the front of the class and she would, you know, do moves, and we would follow her and repeat and, you know, try to, you know, mimic what she was doing. And it was so graceful and it was so beautiful. And it was really taking those pieces and for her internalizing them and then bringing them out into movement. And I remember even being, you know, a young person in these classes and being moved by this and really feeling, I loved the ones in minor that like made you feel sad and like, you know, want to cry, and like there was all this angst in them. And I remember just feeling so deeply, feeling that music so deeply in my body, and even at a young age being moved. So that's, I mean, live pianist, that's as young as I can remember. And I mean, I was always in choir and things like that. So we performed live, but like actually having someone like in the same space and listening, I would say would be those ballet classes. My family was a sports family. We were not a musical family. We were Ohio State football and like Pee Wee football on the weekends and cheerleading and softball and volleyball and swimming and all those things. We weren't like go to the musical or go to the opera. That wasn't our family. So having that kind of other side was always interesting because it was so opposite of everything else that was going on, you know, in our lives at the time. So yeah.
That is incredible. I love that. And I'm sure your family are so in awe and proud of you when you open that glorious mouth and give this beautiful sound. It must be such a joy for them. And I'm wondering, you've now studied extremely hard to get to where you've got to today. And I'm wondering, what did that look like for you when you finished education and you were about to go off into the professional world? How did you maneuver that change? Because it's such a huge change. And I'm just wondering what you did first.
Yeah, it is a huge change. And I have to say, for me, it wasn't an easy transition. I wasn't a natural singer. I mean, I always had a voice. I always had, you know, color and size and all of that to the voice. I always felt like I was more of a natural mover and an actor than an actual singer. And so, you know, musical theater came to me first. And I felt like that, you know, that helped inform so much of what I do in the opera world today. But when I left graduate school, and I would say I was 25 when I left graduate school, I didn't get into any young artist programs. I mean, to be perfectly honest, looking back on it, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. The voice was not lined up. The technique was not ready, you know, and with a big voice, as can often happen, things are wild, you know, in your mid-20s. Any big voice knows it doesn't settle down until after like 30. So at that point, you know, it was so wild, and I wasn't ready. And so I didn't get into any young artist programs. And I remember that I auditioned for AVA in Philadelphia. I really wanted to go there. And I got to the finals, but I didn't get in, and I was super bummed out. And I had said to myself, well, you know what? If nobody's going to give me a young artist program, I'm going to make my own. So I moved to New York City, and I found a teacher. And at that time, I was a coloratura soprano. So I found, or through a friend, I found Rita Shane, who was an amazing dramatic coloratura in her time. And I started taking lessons with her. And I was also, I had met Martina Arroyo at Indiana University during my graduate school. And she had done a role preparation class at the university. And that role preparation class was also in New York City through her foundation, through her Martina Arroyo Foundation. And so she invited me to be a part of those role preparation classes. So I had things to do. I was going to my lessons. I was going to Martina's role preparation classes. I think they were on Tuesday and Thursday nights at the Liederkranz in New York City. And I was, you know, doing coaching with other coaches and things in the city. And I made my own young artist program, you know, and I was studying language, and I went to a couple of dance classes at Steps in New York City, and, you know, just I tried to make it happen as best as I could, so that when I was ready vocally, I felt I had done the training. And so then I did my first young artist program. I think that next year, it was about a year of sort of studying with my teacher in New York City, and doing the role prep classes and things. And I think it was either 2006 or 2007. And I got into Opera Theater St. Louis. And so that was my first summer young artist program. And so I did that. And, you know, again, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't quite ready to go into the big young artist programs. And so it just took a little longer, you know. So I did another young artist program in 2009, where I went to Bologna, and I did they had a new scuola that they had opened, which was a young artist program. And we had Italian class every day, and master classes, and, you know, all this. I mean, you were in Bologna for a year, which was amazing. And you got to sing on the stage. I mean, I did La Rondine there. So that was amazing. And then I did, in 2010, I did the Karamor Festival. And again, I was still a young artist.
Well, I was going to ask you about this, because it's
Yeah.
such a fascinating story, because you literally had to jump in, didn't you, to the title role of Donizetti. How did you do that? It's such a large amount of pressure.
It was a huge amount of pressure. And like I said, I was a young artist, so I was an older young artist. I mean, usually young artists program in the States, you know, you're 25 to 28, 29, and I was 30. And so I had prepared for that young artist program as if I were a professional cover. You know, I had covered before, and so I knew, you know, you need to know your role better than the person who's actually doing it, because you won't have rehearsal, or you won't have much of it, and you could be called at a moment's notice to sing a rehearsal or sing a performance. And that's what happened. We were going up to Karamor to do a concert, and the dress rehearsal of the Maria di Rohan, which was what we were singing. And my colleague who was singing the role called out of the dress rehearsal. And so they, you know, we were getting on the bus at 7:00 in the morning, and they say, Jennifer, do you want to sing the dress rehearsal today? You know, your colleagues canceled. And I was like, yes, of course I do. And I remember telling them, I remember saying, can you hold the bus for like 5 minutes? Because I was, you know, it was 7:00 in the morning, and I had not planned to sing. So I was like not hydrated, and like had like hand wine with my friends the night before. And like, so I like booked it to a bodega that was like a block away, and bought like an armful of coconut water, and just like started chugging. I'll never forget that. But I sang that, I just, in my mind, I said, when am I going to get to sing this music ever again? You know, when am I going to get to sing Maria di Rohan with an orchestra of this caliber, and with a conductor of this caliber, and, you know, at a place like this? So I'm gonna sing down, you know. So I sang it out, and I did it like it was a performance. And after it was over, we got onto the bus, and the powers that be came onto the bus and said, Jennifer, can you come to the office? And I was like, oh no, what did I do? You know, I thought I was in trouble. I had done something wrong. And there was a group of them standing by the office at the back of the Karamor Theater. And my dear friends, Rochelle Yonk and Lucy Yates, who are coaches, and Lucy's my Italian coach, they were crying. And I was like, who died? Like, what's happening? Did somebody in my family die? Are you calling to tell me that I have to go to a funeral? They're crying. And Will Crutchfield says, we've decided that you're going to sing the performance. Do you have a dress? And that was it. And I looked at him and said, actually, no, I don't have a dress. So
oh my goodness.
But it was, I always say to young singers, right place, right time, and prepared. And that's really what it was. It was at that moment, I had done the work up to that point. You know, I had done the young artist programs, and I had studied the language, and I had done all my lessons, and I had done this work. And so at that point, I was ready for that opportunity. And yes, my ready, you know, my right time and prepared came late, later than a lot of my other colleagues who are singing, you know, professionally today. And that's okay, because that was my path. That's what I had to do at that point in time in order to give the best performance that I could give. And really that opportunity, that's what transitioned me into being a professional, you know, and getting a lot of auditions and getting my Met debut and getting an international debut in Oslo, you know, came from that. And, you know, really being able to have people recognize my name and go into an audition and say, oh, wow, I saw you at Karamor. Or, you know, one day I was on the subway and someone approached me and said, are you Jennifer Rowley from Karamor? And I like freaked out, like, yes, what is happening? So it was just, you know, it was just that moment in time that you are in the right place, the right time, and prepared. You do a great job, and then everything changes, you know, for you. And then opportunities come and the work doesn't stop. Do you know what I mean? It's just because you made that debut, just because you transitioned into being a main stage soloist, you aren't done working. The amount of work that I put into everything that goes on stage is still the same incredible amount of work to get you to, you know, to that point. So it is, you know, an overnight success that takes 10 years to get to.
Absolutely. It's such a huge, amazing opportunity that takes, you know, years and years. Like you said, you had to have that preparation.
Years.
I'm wondering, mentally, was it the preparation purely that got you through that with focus and made you able to do what you did on that stage in 2010?
I think it was, you know, knowing in my mind, I know this. I have prepared this. I am ready for this. My voice is ready for this. But also, there was an incredible sense of camaraderie and family at that festival. And I have to say, many people at that festival are my best friends today. I mean, really, the atmosphere that Will Crutchfield creates is really one of a family. And so we call it our 2010 Karamor family, and we all, you know, we're all still in touch. We've had, you know, we have little reunions. We, you know, we just did, you know, now Will Crutchfield runs Teatro Nuovo. It's not at Karamor anymore. It's at a different place. But we just, the Bel Canto family just did the whole Vakai exercises, and Will Crutchfield put out a 30-minute Bel Canto in 30 minutes video, and it was people who sang at Karamor, people who were at that festival that year, you know, and singing Vakai exercises, and he put it into a little movie, and it was fantastic. But I think the support of my colleagues, that really helped get me through that situation. I mean, I had people coming, what can I get you? Can I get you a water? Do you want some chicken? Do you want a sandwich? What do you want? Can I help you? What do you need? Can I zip your dress? Can I do your hair? Like, I mean, it really was, everyone was there, and everyone wanted me to do well. And I think that was a huge, it was a huge sigh. It was a huge weight that comes off of you when everyone around you is your cheerleader, you know. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
It's such an amazing memory, and you're so right. It's that feeling of positivity and support that absolutely creates wonderful things. So I'm really glad you had such an amazing experience. And history slightly repeated itself, didn't it, in January 2018, when you didn't just step in for one debut, but two debuts in the space of a week. How did you cope with that? Can you talk us through how that unfolded?
So that was a really crazy time. And I'll let you in on a secret. I had bronchitis the whole time. I was in that ENT's office. I'm not even kidding you, every day. I was really going through it, because it's a time in New York where everybody's sick. Everybody's sick. So yeah, I had a tosca on a Friday. my performance of Tosca in the new production of Tosca, the David McVicker, beautiful, amazing production of Tosca. And everyone is sick, everyone's coughing, around you. So that performance went really well and fabulous. And we had done the dress rehearsal, I want to say it was on the Tuesday or the Wednesday before that. So for me, my dress rehearsal. So I just had I didn't have a rehearsal with the orchestra. I just had like a room rehearsal. And I remember walking out of the building and calling my husband and saying, it went really well. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to see you on Friday. And I get on, the phone, the Metropolitan Opera is calling you. So I'm like, okay, hon, the office is calling me. I just need to call you. I'll call you right back. So I hang up the phone and I pick up, and so the person on the other line says, I have Peter Gelb on the line for you. Could you have a moment to speak to him? And I was like, what? Like, again, what did I do? So I said, of course I have a moment to speak to Peter. No problem. And she says, okay, hold please. And he gets on the line and he says, Jennifer, I heard your dress rehearsal went well. Then I said, yeah, it went very well. I feel very ready. And he says, how does Leonora feel? And I said, yeah, she feels great. I'm excited to get into rehearsals next week. And he said, how about singing the opening? And I said, what now? And he said, well, unfortunately, your colleague is sick and she has to go home to have some medical procedures. And we would like for you to step in and sing the whole run. And I was like, what does that actually mean? Because it opens next week. And he said, well, what that means is you'll sing Tosca on Friday. And on Saturday, you will have rehearsal all day to learn the production. And then on Monday, you will be on stage. And Tuesday, you will be on stage. And Wednesday, you will sing the dress rehearsal. And then the following Friday, you will open Trovatore. And I said, well, when Peter calls you personally, you just say yes. So I said, yeah, let's do it. And we did it. And I didn't, it was so funny because I didn't realize how difficult the vocal transition would be between Tosca and Leonora, because they very much are different. They're different throat spaces, they're different techniques. Leonora is very bel canto and Tosca is very, throw it down and sing your guts out, and so they're very, very different. So to change between the two was very challenging. And I really don't feel like I settled into the Leonora until like the third or the fourth performance. And also I was battling the bronchitis. So you can actually hear, there's 3 recordings of the Trovatore on the Met Sirius radio channel. You can hear me coughing on the first 2 recordings. Like I'm on stage, like turning up stage, like trying not to cough in the microphones, like popping lozenges. Like I had lozenges like stuck in my costume, popping lozenges in my mouth as I turned off stage, like, so I wouldn't cough, but you can hear it on the recordings. You can hear me coughing in the mics. Wow. But Saturday, literally, I went from 10 a.m. Like I didn't even get to go party after my Tosca. I had to wake up and go to rehearsal. I staged the entire show in one day. We did it all on Saturday. It was insane. And then they put me in on stage and we were going. It was crazy. Wow. It was absolutely crazy.
That is such a story, and superwoman. You are superwoman for getting through that vocally and in every other way, mentally, everything. It's amazing.
It's crazy, but you learn a lot about the business too in a situation like that, because the opening of my Trovatore was not perfect. There was in no way was it. There was no way it could be. You do a 6-week rehearsal process or a 4-week rehearsal process in order to get your body to move and sing at the same time, right? This is hard. It's hard to coordinate all of the muscles. And no matter how much of a professional you are or how great your technique is, that step of the process is always the same for everybody. You have to rehearse. You have to walk around and sing at the same time. It's not the same as standing in a practice room and having a coaching or a voice lesson. You have to walk around and coordinate picking things up, getting up and down off the floor, having a fight scene, you know, being pulled by Conte di Luna, being, you know, nearly raped. Like you have to coordinate all of those things and also think about how you're singing, you know, and what needs to happen in the throat and your breath and the body. So that's why we have a rehearsal process. And so, you know, when something like that happens and you don't have that time, there is a moment where you say to yourself, and you have to say to yourself, okay, whatever comes out today, whatever happens on stage today, that's the best I have to give at this moment, because I didn't have that rehearsal process. I didn't have time with the orchestra. I didn't have time with the conductor. This is the very best that I'm going to give in this moment. And the next show will be better. And the next show will be better. And at a certain point, you have to let go of the criticism, the reviews, the what are people going to think, all that stuff, and only focus on this is the best I can do right now. And what I think was really funny was, you know, as the reviews came in for that production, for me, they got better and better and better as the shows went on. And the first show was kind of, but I was also kind of, you know? So you learn a lot about yourself in that kind of a process, and you learn a lot about the business and, you know, something that maybe you haven't experienced before because you are used to having a 5-week rehearsal process, a 6-week rehearsal process. You're thrown into doing, and you just have to be okay with it. You have to believe in what you have to give, and you have to be okay with what's going to come out and with the product you're going to put on stage, and know that it's the best that you can do. So it was a huge learning experience for me, huge learning experience.
Oh, I can imagine. It's such a huge opportunity. And as you said, you know, you have to just go with it and lean into that fear in order to really move forwards. And as you've said, it's interesting that that's brought up a thought about the industry in terms of you're never going to be ready. You have to just go with 2 feet straight in. I'm wondering, you've got to such an incredible point in your career, and all of the time when I view your Instagram or I view any interviews that you've done previously, you're so full of love and wisdom and support for young singers. And I'm wondering, what has been your biggest obstacle that you faced to get to the point that you're at today?
You know, honestly, I think what I said earlier was the biggest obstacle, in that I was not ever a natural singer. This has always taken work for me, a lot of work. And technically, you know, I went through a big vocal change at 30. My voice just completely changed. I was no longer a coloratura, even though I still do some coloratura stuff. It's different, you know. I don't do Queen of the Night anymore. I do Norma, you know, it's different. But the voice opened. It opened into a much bigger place, a fuller place. I had chest voice that I never had before. And you know, it just changed. And so, because again, I wasn't a natural technical singer, I had to relearn I had to relearn technique. And thankfully I found a masterful teacher in New York, Michael Paul, who goes, you know, completely from the science, who was able to explain to me what was happening, why it was happening, what muscles we were using. And then I was able to understand how to, you know, how to use his technique in my body and understand it. And that's it, you know, that's a big thing, being able to understand your own vocal technique so that you can reproduce it out in the world that's a big challenge. But I think not being a natural musician, not being a natural singer, I could not play the piano. I'm terrible. I can't. It's terrible. No, I never was able to sight read. I have to plunk every single note. It's just not, it just wasn't a natural thing for me, but I always had a voice, you know, and what does come naturally for me are the characters. You know, I can read a libretto and I can read about a character and I can feel her and I can I can relate to her. I can find something in my life to bring into her that, you know, maybe someone didn't think of yet, or something that makes, you know, my Leonora special, or my Amelia special, or my Aida special, because that's what I am. That's what I feel I am natural at. I have that creativity, and it just, you know, the wheels start turning and I want to play, you know? So I think the biggest challenge has been that musicianship and the learning to be a good musician, learning to be a good singer and a technically sound singer. And you know, it takes a lot of work. It takes more work for me, and that's okay. Again, you know, that's my path, and that's who I am. And other people can pick up stuff and learn it like that, and it takes me a while. You know, it takes me a while. So
fully understand that. I am in the
exactly.
same boat. No, I
Yeah.
do. And I'm really interested that you say, you know, you just pick up and play. What did that look like for you as a child? Were you always attracted to singing? Is that something that you found solace in? Is it
Oh,
something that naturally developed?
you know, as a kid, I was constantly like doing something. Like my grandparents would come over for dinner or something, and like my brother and I would have created a puppet show, or like we would have written a play, or we were constantly like being creative. I was constantly oh my God, my parents wanted to kill me all the time because I would sing Whitney Houston in the shower at the top of my lungs. Like Tiffany in the shower was like my jam, right? So I was constantly using my imagination and coming up with things and creating characters and make believe. Even, you know, when you're a kid and you play Barbies, like my friends and I, we didn't just like play Barbies. We made like soap opera storylines, like, and changing outfits and shoes and this and that, you know, like, but it was always creative. We were always doing something, you know, putting on plays for our families or singing for our family, or, you know, something like that. It just was constantly there. So that was something that just, it stayed with me, you know, and I think through the dance and other things that I did coming up, you know, to get where I am today, I think my mind just sort of stayed in that track, you know. So when it does come to play, you know, I love to play. I love when like David McVicker's assistant on the Trovatore at the Met, he said, okay, in Act 4, he said, okay, so David's staging was that Leonora climbs the gate at this moment to try to get up to the tower to reach Manrico. He said, only one other of the sopranos before you has climbed the gate. You don't have to climb the gate if you don't want to. And I was like, we're climbing the gate. Let's do it. Like, we're doing it. Let's get up there. Because if in that moment she was so desperate that she wanted to try to get him, she would try to climb the gate. So let's do it. And I'll never forget doing it for the first time in rehearsal and like watching Peter run down the aisle and say, get her off of that gate.
Oh, I love that so much. I love this adventurous side of you. It's just so fabulous. I absolutely love it. And I'm wondering also, you have been such a huge positive change for young singers everywhere, especially in this last few months. You've been a huge source of positivity for so many young singers and instrumentalists alike. And I'm wondering, how do you see this industry moving forwards in terms of the young singers coming through? How do you see it creating a positive change, what we've been through?
Yeah, you know, it was this whole summer. I'm so, first of all, I'm so grateful to have been able to be in a position in my career where I have the reach that I do on social media, where people know me, and where I could put something out for young singers, have it get seen, and then, you know, have the reaction to it be so wonderful and positive and intense that I could help so many people. So first of all, I just have to say how grateful I am for that opportunity. And also, you know, to have places like Fort Worth Opera, like the Morelia Festival, who wanted me and who wanted me to share what I have to give in these online classes and forums and panels and things. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And I really, there were so many singers that just, they needed it. You know, they needed the opportunity to sing. They needed the motivation to keep working. They needed to know that somehow there is going to be a fall audition season and we need to prepare for it. And that's, you know, that really was the goal. It was to motivate, it was to inspire, it was to get everyone up off of the sofa if they were feeling, you know, down and depressed and, you know, questioning the state of the world and the business. I wanted to say, this will end. Whether it ends in January or February or March or next January, it will end. We will go back to singing. We will go back to our theaters being full, and we will go back to having opera. We will. And what I wanted to provide was space so that when that opportunity happens, the young singers are ready. Because that is what I needed when I was their age. I needed someone to keep me singing. And that is what Martina Arroyo did for me through her prelude to performance in New York and her role preparation classes. And I had Martina as a guest on the Fort Worth master classes because she inspired me. She kept me singing. She kept providing opportunity for me so that when the time was right and I was ready, I could take it and I could go, right? And I said to myself when I was working with her, I said to myself, I will fill her shoes one day. I will have the ability to pay forward what she had given to me at a point in my career where I was on the couch, you know, and saying, I don't know how I go forward. I don't know what I do, you know? And so I just felt that this was my time for that. And so I see us going forward in both ways. I see us going forward virtually. And obviously I see us going back to the Opera House. But I do see, if the possibility is there for virtual connection and for virtual coaching, virtual voice lessons, virtual things like that, I see us keeping that around. Because why not? I mean, today, actually, I will start an artist residency with my alma mater. This will be my third year of that artist residency. And I get to do it in my quarantine because we have this capability, you know? And so I have done it in person previously, and now we're just gonna do it on Zoom. We're gonna do the same things, but we're gonna do it on Zoom. And I think that's something that can continue going forward, because then you can get people from Europe, from Russia, from the UK, from Asia, from wherever, to reach students in the United States, or vice versa, you know, that we wouldn't be able necessarily to have before. And I also think, you know, I think what the Metropolitan Opera competition is doing is so spectacular and so inspiring, because they're going to hear voices that they wouldn't have been able to hear the other way. You know, so many singers are getting to sing because it's virtual. You know, singers who don't have the means to travel, singers who don't live in the United States and who can't just, you know, pop over the pond to do a Metropolitan Opera competition. They can do it now because it's virtual. And so they're going to learn about so many more incredible singers, because we're going to be able to reach the singers in Mexico and the singers in Argentina and the singers in Italy and France that we, you know, maybe wouldn't before. So I think that there is a value in the virtual, you know, world that I think is going to continue. And if that continues in auditions or however it continues, it will continue. But like I said, we will go back to the opera house. We must, we will.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, I hope so. Yeah, no, you're dead right. We will. Absolutely. And I think it's really important what you said. The positives of this whole time is connection with different countries, connection with, places that we wouldn't necessarily get to sing in, like you've said. And I want to say on behalf of all the young singers who found your masterclasses and everything you've been doing so helpful, thank you. Thank you for being a leading light. You've been incredible. And I have reached my final question now, Jen. And that is, what piece of advice would you give to an 18-year-old Jen?
So the one thing that I have found, not only in my career, the entire career, but also through the pandemic and through COVID, is that you must learn self-motivation very young. You must learn to wake up in the morning and go to the office, even if you have no office to go to. You must learn your own music. You must study your own scores. You have to set up your own coachings, your own lessons, whatever it is that you need to be the best version of yourself as a professional. You have to motivate and you have to make that happen. The same thing is true in our current situation. If it is that we're not going to go back to the opera house for a little while, then you have to self-motivate. You have to motivate to get yourself ready when it is time. You have to motivate to put out content to stay relevant. Maybe you want to learn a role so that when, the pandemic is over, you've got a new role. I did that. I spent the whole summer, I learned a scene of Norma a week, and now I have Norma, and when somebody's ready to hire me for Norma, I'm ready to go, and I coached it, and I did the language, and I did voice lessons on it, and I did it as if I learned it as if I were doing it. You have to self-motivate to do that. We can't take it lying down. It is okay to have a bad day. Absolutely. It is okay to spend a day and binge Friends on Netflix. Fine. Or wherever Friends is now, HBO. Fine. It's totally cool. But then the next day you have to motivate to get back to work. And that is a skill you will need your entire career. You will need it from college to professional. You will never stop having to be able to self-motivate. So learn it now. Learn it early. Get it at 18. Get yourself an organizational tool, a way to make yourself get to the office and do your work and do it by yourself. Do what you need for you and self-motivate in that way.
That's a fabulous piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, and I'm sure to many singers that will be watching this too. Thank you so much, Jen. You've been a joy to speak with, and it's so lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me on Stage to Sofa.
Thank you for having me.